Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in once again, all you members of the Duuuval. This is Kyle Nash, the student of the game of the Duuuval Dive. Welcome in. Glad to have you aboard. And listen, we're in that part of the season. You could call it lying season. You could call it evaluation season, but it is still, in fact, draft season. And for all the talk of who the Jags should take, what their team needs are, and all of that, it's a good opportunity to really kind of look back and touch base how we got here. And just, one example was a while back where I talked about the positives of Trevor Lawrence's injury from last year. So make sure you check that out here on the Duuuval Dive YouTube channel if you aren't already subscribing and stuff. By the way, please do all of that. But we oftentimes at the moment, surely in late April, Travis D. Holmes, my personal champion, and I will both give grades for the current draft. But those grades always feel empty. People always talk about, hey, we need to really grade 1 year, 2 year, 3 years out, even in some cases, to evaluate how good a draft pick actually was. Well, with that in mind, because we like to do intelligent stuff here on the Duuuval Dive, we are going to regrade the 2024 draft. And as I said before, I am not my favorite evaluator and scout of draft talent. I have people in the building that are way smarter than I am at that. And one of them happens to be my personal champion, Big Cat Country's own Travis D. Holmes. What's going on, my man?
Hey, man, I'm doing well, bro. This is always a good time to reflect. We think this is the if you're going to have a time, it's going to be the time when there isn't the NFL monster of news going on. And as much as it's still draft season, it is still the calmest time we're going to see for this Jacksonville Jaguars organization or for the rest of the NFL. So why not let's talk about what we hit on, what we missed on, and how we feel about this 2024 draft class.
Hey, listen, if the NFL owners are going to do that during this time of year, shouldn't we do the same to evaluate what we've done well and not and all of this other stuff? I think, yeah, that's the vibe, man. I like that take. That's incredibly strong. However, we are going to get some of the easier conversations out of the way because what we're here to do is regrade the 2024 draft. And listen, some of these are going to be real easy. There's an A+ on here that everybody knows who it is. The man has done a ton for the offense. He's done a ton to put points on the board for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And if he's not your favorite pick of the Jacksonville Jaguars season, you're obviously doing wrong. Cam Little, everybody. Woo! That's right. The baddest Alabama from 2024. Listen, I get this out of the way because he's an A+ pick. I don't think there's any question. Constantly, every week when I did the good, the bad, and the spotty on Fans First Sports Network, the positive was him breaking another Jacksonville Jaguar record as a kicker, but obviously a guy who broke a lot of records as well, our own BTJ Brian Thomas Jr. Easily the biggest success of Trent Baalke's career, which ironically did the last offseason he would spend drafting for the Jags. But yeah, what do you have to add to the A+ crew here of Cam Little and BTJ, brother?
I mean, when you have two players for the Jacksonville Jaguars who end up setting rookie records, you probably did something right. And then when you're talking about two guys who set multiple rookie records, again, you're probably in a good situation for this organization as far as your draft is concerned. And it, to your point, kind of stinks that it just happened to be in Trent Baalke's last draft where he actually, well, you can kind of say he lucked into a few of them, but however it happened, it happened. He built a pretty strong resume with that last draft. It's just unfortunate he was not very good at team building and roster construction overall.
Yeah, and keep in mind, I mentioned Cam Little and BTJ as the best draft picks. I'm not sure that, well, I'll even resave my favorite ones. Were they the best ones? I can make an argument for a different pick on this list, but we'll get to all of that a little later. But listen, and Travis, I think you'll agree. If you don't think Cam Little and BTJ are A+ picks, go argue with your mama. I can't listen.
Probably. Yeah. I don't think there's many people that's going to disagree with you, man.
So there you go. Oh, I didn't even mean to hit the bell there. I just hit it by accident. That was just pure serendipity. Okay. Anyways, I think we can agree too on what we believe is our least favorite pick, and we're not picking on this guy. I just really don't think it panned for him as it worked out. Javon Foster, easily the one that we both had graded the lowest. I'll put it this way: in that O-line room, if you couldn't be a part of the cream that rose to the top even early, that's telling. I don't know. What would you add to?
That's pretty much what you're looking at when you start getting this conversations that coming from the scouts and those surrounded around the team. Immediately, once he sets foot on the field, on the practice field, it's like, oh yeah, he may need some time. Or yeah, oh, he's not ready. It was a known that there will be some development that was needed. When he was drafted, he was kind of one of those first guys in the draft. On that tier in that fourth round at that tier where it's like, all right, cool, he's going to be a developmental guy, but you can see the tools, you can see the traits, kind of thing. But as soon as you get him on the field, it's like, oh yeah, that's not going to work out. That's your first sign that this may not be a solid pick, especially again, you're talking in those mid rounds where there are other guys to be had. So it's kind of like you're kind of stuck there. But unfortunately, it didn't work out. Maybe it might work out better with this organization, with this regime. But he's going to have a significantly more competition to truly land on his feet with this organization. So we'll see how that goes in soft season.
Yeah, that's not an if, right? I mean, we've talked about it too. I listened. What was it? I listened to the show the other day with the O lineman where I say 4 names and I go, "Did I say 4 names?" That's how much change there is going on, right? You got swing tackles, swing guards galore, and a center all in there. And for clarity, Travis and I both have Javon as an F on the grade. I don't think all of it is his fault, but let's be clear, and I think you alluded to this. He wasn't a popular pick. And he did nothing to disprove the critics. I think that's a factor too.
That's what it comes down to. And it's not like this is not someone who's grading the pick on hindsight. Like if you're just talking just the fourth round, like again, Jordan Jefferson was still, not Jordan Jefferson, Javon Foster, my apologies. They both were drafted within 2 picks of each other. But yeah, Javon Foster, he was drafted in the same round earlier in the round as Bucky Irving. Again, the same round as Isaac, what's his last name? Guterremo, the running back for the San Francisco 49ers. Same round as Trent Baalke, the safety, the safety that went to Detroit. Like you have a lot of guys who are solid NFL players who we knew. Taylor Bortini, the center for the Indianapolis Colts. Like a lot of guys who are playing significant snaps for some good teams who were drafted after this, and we ended up drafting the developmental tackle because we wanted to make sure we infuse some resources on the offensive line, and it just simply didn't work out. It was one of those picks that had people like, I hope it works, but maybe they know something we don't, or maybe they didn't. I don't know it, but this is absolutely one of those Fs for me.
Now, next on the list is late round draft pick Keelan Robinson at the running back position. I think this was kind of a special teams depth play, right? And listen, for all the criticism we've done of the Jacksonville Jaguar coaching staff, Travis, we had been very, complimentary of being one of the better teams, at least in the preseason, if not throughout, adapting to the XFL style special teams rules. Keelan Robinson really felt like he was a fit into that. They scored a touchdown with Duvernay, no longer with the team, unfortunately, but in preseason, albeit they were the first NFL team to have a touchdown in the XFL style kickoff, all that stuff. I put him in a D, not so much because I thought he did bad, but like when you're drafting, I know you're drafting late for depth. To see him, if you could not beat out Dearness Johnson, or you weren't in position where you were going to get regular special team snaps without injury, you're looking for the next Jamal Agnew, I guess, or something like that. That obviously did not happen. Maybe there'll be more next year, but for now, I'm forced to kind of throw a D at that. What do you think, buddy?
And that's again, that's I'm with you. I'm in that D range. I end up falling on a D minus for Keelan Robinson. Like he only played in, what was it, 6 games. He only appeared in 6 games, and he made one start on special teams after he was activated off IR. So like he was injured early in the
Yeah.
offseason. You don't get to see much from him. And then when you finally do see him, he doesn't make much of an appearance as far as offensively, even with the Jacksonville Jaguars running back room that is pretty limited across the board. Like I don't think I'm being unfair in saying that. I think we've talked about that enough on the Duval dive here. But yep, nevertheless, we have a running back who you've spent a 5th-round pick on. You didn't see much on the special teams side of things. You didn't get to see much in the offseason with this injury. And you're talking about, again, someone who you'd hope to be more of a contributor than just in the special teams area.
Mm-hmm.
There's not much to go on. I'm sorry. I'm in that D range, unfortunately.
It's the injury piece that keeps me from going as low as D minus or F. You're
Okay.
less inclined to give grace in that position than I am. That's a conversation you and I have long had. If anybody's seen us do battle on Twitter about Leonard Fournette, for example, holy crap, we'll just start there. But yeah, I think half a letter grade is a good disparity for me to give him a little grace there with the injury, for sure.
Sure.
On that, I shan't front. Next up, Oh, go ahead.
No, you're fine. Go ahead. Let's do it.
Next up, defensive end, Miles Cole. Travis, I mean, listen, you're the defensive guy here. Give us your thought. I'll put it this way. There was expectation for him, and I don't think he met it. Is that fair?
I think a lot of this is all, unfortunately, going to be unfair to Miles Cole. I want to be honest and say that.
Yeah.
Well, I want to be honest and say that because when he was initially drafted, I laughed at the draft pick and I clapped because it wasn't like it was a great pick. It was more of those, oh man, that is a Trent Baalke pick if you've ever seen it. Like it was that. It was truly like, all right, he's going to be a developmental guy. He's going to need a few years. Like I truly thought, and I even said it out loud at one point, like, hey man, that might be great value, Trevon Walker. Like that is what I view him as someone he wasn't supposed to get snaps last season. But now we've seen what we've seen on the tape. So unfortunately, I'm only going to grade what I've seen so far. And because of that, I gave Miles Cole a D+. That's not saying that he can't change. That's not saying he can't continue to develop and end up being this great pick that actually gains significant snaps for this Jacksonville Jaguars defense moving forward. However, hey man, the tape's the tape. And based on what we saw on tape, he still has some ways to go as far as his development is concerned. And maybe he'll rise to that occasion. But yeah, that's where I'm landing.
And as we show prepped, I made a comment about you and I may grade some dudes the same. We're going to get there different ways. You're talking about tape and stuff, obviously, as you often do here on the show, and you're good at that, no question. Me, they were better options. You've cited this and stuff. When we were talking earlier about Javon Foster, you have the guys that you have, and you opted for depth at that spot. And I get it. You were still waiting to see what Yasir Abdullah would do. Cool. That's fine. But in the world where Chad Muma's still on this roster and you did nothing about that, listen, we've been over Kyle's feelings about Chad Muma, but I don't know that was the right pick at the time. And it being a bulky pick through and through, maybe we're reevaluating 2024 and 26 and being like, yo, this guy's got Pro Bowler potential. Okay.
He was a seventh round draft pick, and he saw playing time in 8 games. He only got 8 tackles and 8 tackles, 1 tackle for a loss. But that's something. But you're not expecting 8 tackles in 8 games. That's just not going to get you a C. That's not going to get you a B. That's not going to get you promise moving forward. I'm sorry. Right. I'm not trying to be unfair, but I can only grade what we've seen.
Well, I mean, the real question is that production more valuable than lumping that 7th pick in with another pick to go up higher in a draft, right? I would say no, but that's why I put D for that. I think that's pretty easy. And who knows? Like we acknowledge here, Miles Cole may still grow. Maybe he just didn't get enough opportunities because Josh Hines-Allen and Trevon Walker both stayed relatively healthy. Now, this particular pick right here, He's not your favorite pick out there. He might be Travis's. I don't know. But he's certainly what I would argue is the best pick in the draft. And of course, I refer to cornerback Jarrian Jones. Now, I was prepared to say he's an A, go argue with your mama. But Mr. Pessimist Travis D. Holmes here had to bleep up that rotation. I don't know how you grade a dude lower than an A when not only from literal snap number 1, where he's covering Tyreek Hill and locks it down, to now playing hurt throughout the season as a rookie and still maintaining starting position throughout. The whole purpose of a first-round draft pick is to get a starter, depending on what textbook you read. But they got it in a second router, and the dude happened to play well. So well, in fact, they're even the smart money is betting on they're going to kick him outside to start alongside of Tyson Campbell, which means inevitably, unless they draft a particular guy people are hunting for amongst the Duuuval, he will probably be QB1 on the inevitable weeks that Tyson Campbell's hurt.
Yeah.
That's why it's an A. Please make me see you with the B here, bro.
Hey man, I can only give you my opinion. I love Jarrian. You've seen me talk about him all throughout the season. You've seen me rave about him, but I am not judging him. Yeah, but I am not judging him just based on the Jacksonville Jaguars. I am not judging him just based on a horrendous Jacksonville Jaguars secondary and how they played. I am judging him across the NFL. I am judging all these guys, trying my best to be unbiased and trying my best to be equal. Jarrian is a great cornerback. He is a great slot cornerback, and that is awesome. However, Jarrian was also drafted in the 3rd round, right? He was also drafted just behind Ronaldo Green, which I thought the Jacksonville Jaguars should have drafted, the starting cornerback for the San Francisco 49ers, who's doing very dang well. So in my head, I'm like, ooh, I would have. This is one of those things because now you're in a situation where you're going to have to play Jarrian Jones. This is not reactionary. This is not with hindsight. This was my thought process even then. Like, again, I love the pick, but I recognize that pick was a very specific, we'll say, pick. Like where you're saying, all right, we're going to play him, and he's going to play in that nickel slot, specifically in that nickel slot, and he's going to then help us move forward as your nickel moving in the future. If you feel the need that you need to bring in another nickel who's going to be able to play significantly better in Jordan Lewis, the following season after you drafted this guy in the 3rd round, that makes me feel like, all right, no. You knew he was solid. You knew he was a good corner. And I thought he was, again, a good corner. Was he perfect? No. Was he top of the league? Yeah, I'll probably put him maybe top half of the league. Sure. Maybe even top quarter. I can even see myself being argued. But if you're talking about a game changer in that way, well, we need to see more development. And unfortunately, he may not have time for that development if you're going to have someone like Jordan Lewis playing those slot roles right now. So this is not like with hindsight. This was like, hey, I thought that same thing then, and now I'm seeing it in action play out where they're bringing in another guy and putting him outside, and I'm hoping he's going to be able to develop as an outside corner, something he struggled in college doing. Mm-hmm. Well, now you could be in a position where you simply wasted that 3rd round draft pick because he may not even see the field much, depending on how this 2025 NFL draft goes.
So wait, so you don't think Jarrian Jones is a guaranteed starter in the coming season?
If they draft an outside corner within the first 3 rounds, I got questions. Like, I actually think that outside corner, someone who's shown the chops to be able to play as an outside corner. Let's say they draft a Benjamin Morrison in the 2nd round, coming off his injuries.
Some of us have done that on the mock draft.
Yeah. So let's say they draft Travis Hunter in the 1st round. You think Jarrian Jones is going to be starting outside? I don't have that confidence. I'm not 100% sure that's going to take place. Maybe. And again, I love Jarrian, but I'm just talking about what's happening surrounding him, and what was happening surrounding him at the time of him being picked is making me look back at that pick and like, oh no, I think I might have been right to have those concerns. And that makes me be like, well, it's going to be kind of hard to say this is an A because you knew it was a risk when you made the pick. And now that risk is playing out where that bet might not land. I'm sorry, but it is what it is.
That's interesting. Because like I had a retort for your Green argument. That statement, if all of that is correct and you're aligned with what that defensive room is thinking, I don't have much of an argument for that. So we'll leave all of that at that. So with that out of the way, the two defensive tackles. It's interesting. We're still talking about defensive tackles for this squad. That is what it is. But the two defensive tackle draftings that the Jacksonville Jaguars made were both a conundrum in their own right. And let's go ahead and start with Mason Smith. Now, Travis, you and I thought that he was an opportunity waiting to happen, and we're also completely confused and utterly befuddled, for lack of a better word, kerfluffled, whatever. Healthy scratches for Mason Smith really messed with my head, and you felt kind of knocked off kilter by it. But what do you make of his performance? It's hard to grade him lower than a C. I'll start with that because he did eventually come on. But I felt weird giving him a B. I gave him a B minus. Am I too cruel?
No, not at all. I actually gave him a B minus also. So we actually are in full agreement there. We landed the plane on the same runway.
That's right.
Yeah. At the end of the day, he did play in just the 11 games. He had 4 quarterback hits, 3 sacks, finished with 17 tackles, 10 solo, and 3 passes defense. He was one of 4. Sorry. He was one of 4 rookie defensive linemen in 2024 with 3 or more sacks. He was third in line behind Brandon Fisk of the Rams and Latu in Indianapolis, who's a defensive end. So technically, he's the second rookie defensive tackle to kind of land in that area. So it wasn't a bad season in that way. It was just more the early season inactives and the developmental items, and which, to his credit, Mason via Jaguars.com in that interview basically stated, hey, it was something that to do with him, the reason he was inactive. So it might have been something development wise. It might have been something he wasn't getting his practice habits right, or maybe something to do with the playbook. It could have been any of those things. So to his credit, it wasn't all the coaching staff. Some of it may have fallen on his shoulders. He figured it out, came on at the end of the season.
Or maybe he was nicked up a bit. Who knows?
Yeah. But it seems like the arrow's pointing up for him. So again, I landed at that B minus range because there's still some questions in relation to, the fact that defensive tackle is still going to be a need for this Jacksonville Jaguars organization. You can't then say this is an A pick or maybe even a B plus. I think would be a little too strong.
My favorite thing that you point out there, though, Travis, is that the arrow is trending up. And for any of these picks to be able to confidently say the arrow is trending up is a big part of it. And I know you were, let's take Najarian too, as relatively critical compared to me that you were of him. You still think the arrow may be trending up depending on what the Jaguars get in their draft. By the way, by accident, we tripped on another versatile player that makes what the Jaguars are doing at pick 5 confusing. We didn't even mean to look for that with Jarian, and we found it. Anyways, so with all that being said, I find that's funny. We came out the same place on Mason Smith, and I think for all the arrow trending up, if they go the popular direction of Mason Graham, and to be clear, Travis and I both think the correct move is to trade back out of pick 5. I know there's certain parties out there that think we're Mason Graham's stands. It's not true, but that all being said, trading back, I think, is still something that you and I would both like to see. I just lost our guy, Brett Coleman, by the way, who has Gray Zabel as a first-round pick. Thanks for ruining it. So, so, if they trade back and get him in the guard spot, which may or may not happen with the volume brought in, obviously, that's a whole other question. So yeah, I like a lot of what's going on there, but let's say they do get Mason Graham. He could just as easily, like Jarian, end up trending back down. Who knows? There's a lot of movement there, but I'm with you. I find it interesting how I don't agree with it strongly, but boy, do I see the line of demarcation on how Mason Smith and Jarian Jones are similar in that this upcoming draft could determine their future and how valuable they were as draft picks in 2024. 24. So with that in mind, the final draft pick on the list, Jordan Jefferson. No, not the receiver, obviously, but the other defensive tackle in the draft. Travis, I'm confused. I have to be honest. Of the guys, this was easily the hardest for me to grade, right? So whenever that happens, I start in the middle and I work my way up or down as I should. My instinct was going to be to make him a C because we really still don't know. I think rotation, craziness under the previous coaching staff and all that with Ryan Nielsen, etc., makes this really hard to grade. But getting a defensive tackle at the spot that they got him, was it the right move? And that's the part that puts me lower. I have him at C-, not so much because of his play. I'm also grading the draft pick as a decision, and I didn't love it. Granted, this is the world before we saw any alteration. Like, I know Roy Robertson Harris doesn't play that position per se, but we were still figuring out Devon Hamilton. Was he going to be in a healthy state? All of that. Were they going to maintain Ledbetter on the roster? Blah, 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 blah. All down the line, right?
Sure.
So, yeah, I have C- on Jordan Jefferson. What say you, brother?
Well, I end up landing at a D- for Jordan Jefferson. And yes, he only played in 8 games in his rookie season, 0 starts. He had 12 tackles, 5 solo, 1 tackle for a loss, 1 quarterback hit, 1 pass defense, which I was like, oh, really?
He's got an extended pass?
Yeah, he does. I thought that was funny. I was like, oh, okay, I guess I just didn't remember that one. But even when the draft happened, I was like, that's weird. Like, it wasn't about what the draft pick was because it was a 4th round draft pick. It was about the fact that Jefferson seemed to be one of the final, I can't even say starting level, but like one of the final nose tackle options, one tech options in the draft that was kind of available that you may be able to lean on. He was like right at that line. You literally didn't see any defensive tackles or any nose tackles go in the 5th round, not into the early 6th round to, I believe it was Pittsburgh. So it was just like, all right, cool. So he's kind of one of those last guys you can depend on. The Jacksonville Jaguars also had the linebackers coach, Matt House for LSU, who coached him. So maybe they're thinking that he's going to be someone they can lean on. And then they don't really lean on him. And then they have Devon Hamilton, who's already in-house, and the Jacksonville Jaguars were struggling to get any kind of interior pressure as far as that piece was concerned, and also at certain points in the season also struggled to stop the run. So I'm just sitting there like, dude, what was that pick for? Is that just a future plan for Devon Hamilton? I didn't understand it, and it's not like it's not like the tape just popped off the screen. So for my head, we were already in the D range, and unless I can see some promise, which I haven't to date, I'm kind of landing at D-.
See, and again, I think this ties for the biggest gap.
Okay.
The reason why biggest gap in our grading, by the way, the reason why I don't hit the Jags quite that hard is I feel compelled to remember the context, right? I mentioned Devon Hamilton already. They didn't know what they had yet, I think, or if they did, we in the public sure weren't aware of it. I mentioned Ledbetter. I think something else, too, that I feel compelled, if I don't mention it, anybody who sees the shorts there on the Duval Dive YouTube channel from last year, who was the guy that made a short talking about load management for Eric Armstead, right? Back when we thought he was actually going to play D-tackle and only D-tackle. That was me, right? So they brought in Jordan Jefferson, I think, to kind of help manage that. And at that point, we still hadn't seen the healthy scratches from the active roster from him or Mason Smith. None of that was in place. They thought they had guys with which they can load manage not only Eric Armstead, but potentially Devon Hamilton if he had setbacks in his recovery, which, whether he did or not, we may have just not heard about it, and it could have contributed to some of the issues with getting push up front too as well. There's a whole lot of there that we're not able to unpack as we aren't in the organization. We just cover them, right? But I'll put it this way. Where I think your D grade is somewhat warranted, which is why I give a C-, right? Half a letter grade away from D, right? just so we're aware, I'm somewhat close, even though I'm a full grade apart, right? Would you be surprised if his name ended up as one of the ones missing from the 53-man starter? I wouldn't be, right?
Not at all. Yeah,
So.
not at all. But and just like, because again, they were drafted 2 picks behind each other, Javon Foster and Jordan Jefferson. I view in that very similar light. Like I would have needed to see more, because again, these are not 5th, not 6th, not 7th round, not undrafted free agent. These are 4th round draft picks. These are middle round draft picks where normally in most NFL drafts you can get interior offensive line help. You can get centers. You can get those guys who will play significant snaps. I mean, we already named the multiple guys who were drafted in that range. Bucky Irvin was drafted after these guys. Again, you're talking multiple. Ray Davis, Buffalo, was drafted after these guys. TJ Tampa, cornerback, Baltimore, was drafted after these guys. So we're talking about guys who can play that were drafted after, and we just have these 2 guys who we are hoping and praying were developmental, that are going to be able to be developmental prospects for the Jacksonville Jaguars roster moving forward in a year, 2 years, 3 years from now. Or they'll be practice squad guys. We don't know.
Right. I can land your point with one question. How much more could a competent run blocking guard have meant compared to these 2 picks in Foster and Jordan Jefferson?
Right. And that's the point. That's the overall point, is that everybody, even at the time of the picks, was like, I don't know about this, but I'm going to trust the coaching staff. I'm going to trust the GM.
That's an awful lot you're putting on Mitch Morris to improve the higher beep team, just like we said last year, right?
Right. So this is not hindsight. That's just like, this was the thought process then, and that is only stayed the same or even gotten stronger since. So yeah, that's where I landed. Again, I landed at that D-.
I'll put it this way. And like I said, I'm only a half a step from a D, because the player may still pan. That's a possibility. But boy, howdy. Like, if listen. Jaguars, Shad Khan. Okay. Kyle Nash, nice to meet you. Me and Travis tried to warn y'all. Now, granted, me and Travis tried to warn y'all a lot of stuff. You've at least corrected the Trent Baalke error. But we tried to tell you that Mitch Morris by himself may not be enough. So, there we go. I get it. So now that we've kind of walked through the grades here, let's go ahead, if my mouse will comply, and give you the summary of our final picks overall. Travis, we matched a lot of places because great minds do think alike. However, where we didn't match, we have 2 full grade levels difference with Jarian Jones and Jordan Jefferson. I find that fascinating. We did have 2 where we were a half step apart, Miles Cole and Kalen Robinson, which, as Travis D. Holmes would say, sure. But
I mean, that was our biggest gaps. Miles Cole, I had a D+. You had him as a D. Keelan Robinson, we were pretty close. We were half grade. I mean, you had him as a D. I had him as a D-.
Yeah, but the biggest
just for our audio listeners, I wanted to kind of lay those differences out. But Jarian Jones being the biggest one, you having him listed as an A, I had him listed as a B. We kind of already hashed that part out earlier. And Jordan Jefferson is, a full grade difference of, you had him as a C-, and I had him as a D-. So yeah.
So it's interesting, for all your picks that you have where you were a straight up hater compared to me, you created the summary of the draft as a C+, whereas I had it as a C-.
Yeah.
Okay.
You don't know how I weighted this to make that happen.
Yeah, your weighting is different. Like, and to your credit, I can see the argument of, well, hey, I'm evaluating the draft a little bit later because of how they got BTJ. They traded back to acquire him. Maybe that being a good move is something you're accounting for. But beyond that, I got nothing. So help me out.
It really comes down to, I'm going to grade the earlier draft picks a little bit heavier than I'm going to grade the late draft picks, because the early draft picks are the ones expected to make the roster, expected to make immediate contributions. If you miss on those, you're Dave Caldwell. You're going to struggle significantly. Whereas great NFL GMs and even good NFL GMs are going to be able to use those mid-round draft picks to build your depth, to raise your floor. And that's where in this NFL 2024 draft that Trent Baalke, in my opinion, missed. Like, I think he just burnt the draft picks from the 4th round on, if you're not named Cam Little. So that's why I end up going to the C+.
The premier weapon point threat for the
Yes. And unfortunately, those 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round draft picks that's kind of what built up the Kansas City Chiefs secondary. Those guys were mostly 4th and on, later on draft picks. And you can't burn the picks and just say this is all development. No. We got to do better, man.
I interviewed a 5th and a 7th round pick for the Kansas City Chiefs. The last Super Bowl they won in Phoenix. By the way, shouts to the 3-point conversion for that. And talked with them not only about them getting turnovers in playoffs, but expecting to contribute significantly in the upcoming Super Bowl that year. So that says everything I think you're landing with that plane too. It's funny. What you factor in giving them credit for the upper picks, I think I give them less credit for those upper picks. And I think the main difference in our outlook is obviously Jarian Jones. You mentioned Jarian's a 3rd round pick. You got a starter out of that.
Sure.
Who also played
temporary starter, maybe.
You say
up in dispute.
There's no argument that he was a 2024 starter by the end of the year.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, sure. Definitely.
And you're also grading on potential, which should be done. It's hard to, you mentioned the point too, that if Jarian doesn't start, I think it's less because he was a bad pick and more because they nail the upcoming pick, if that makes sense. Right?
Oh, yeah. Sure. But we're grading the whole draft, and I didn't want to just do it one by one. I had to look at the Jarian pick with the Mason Smith pick, and because that Mason Smith pick is still a coin flip, and there's guys like again Ronaldo Green, who I'm still mad about that pick because of how good he's played.
In a world where I can name at least 2 potential Hall of Famers on that defense, Fred Warner and Bosa.
Oh, sure.
Okay,
but
the Jags,
he was my guy as a DB guy. As a DB guy, I was saying Ronaldo Green needed to be the pick early on. Like, you can look at the Twitter, is the tweets are there because I was texting with James Coleman, former FSU fullback, Big Game James on Twitter, and we were talking about it. This is again months before the draft, and I'm like, hey man, the Jacksonville Jaguars need to get Ronaldo Green and Jarian Jones. But believe me, Ronaldo Green was the first guy named in that list because I was like, oh no, these are those guys. If you want to revamp that secondary room, so then you pass Ronaldo Green because you pick Mason Smith. Okay, then that you have to land that. I still have questions on that. The arrow's pointing up, so I'm not going to slam it. But at the same time, now it was a risk, and because I know it was a risk, I'm still sitting there like, all right, B minus range, because I got questions on whether or not this is that gamble is going to land, and there are questions around that with them bringing in another slot cornerback.
I'll put it this way, and man, listen. Me having the audacity to disagree with you on Ronaldo Green as somebody who is an expert and better at scouting both at the position than me, without question. I'm not feeling Ronaldo Green being necessarily a better pick than Jones. What I will say is if they got Green and Jones over Smith and Jones, I'd be happier about that too. I'll leave that at that. 100%. So with all that being said, Hater McHater Pants Travis D. Holmes has a higher summary draft grade at C+ than me at C-. We both had A+ for Cam Little and Brian Thomas. Javon Foster was both an F. D+ for Miles Cole, D for Miles Cole for me, D- for Kellen Robinson, D for me. So you went through all the grades earlier. So with all that in mind, that is our regrading of the 2024 draft. Travis D. Holmes, tell the world where you can be found.
Well, as always, you can find my writings covering the Jacksonville Jaguars, bigcatcountry.com. Yeah, right there. of course, find me on all the socials, Travis D. Holmes. We can talk Jaguars. We can talk all NFL football, college football, UFL, maybe even a little Canadian football, man. I'm just here to talk ball as always and hopefully educate the masses, but also hopefully learn a few things. So, man, I'm always here. I'm not here to be right. I'm here to find out what's right out there. So definitely talk some ball. Follow me on all the different socials. Follow the Duval Dive on Twitter. Like and subscribe us if you are listening to us on YouTube, on your favorite podcatcher. We do appreciate it, and it really helps us with the algorithm to keep this thing growing, man. But where can you be found, Mr. Nash?
Hey, man, last episode you was talking about giving relationship advice, even if that's what you need. I mean, listen, well, okay, sure. You know, it's the off season. Why not? Joel Klatt's giving inspiration and talking about, premier road trip snacks that you get at convenience stores and whatnot. I like sunflower seeds too, haters. Anyways, of course, I'm Kyle Nash, the student of the game. You can find me on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, Twitter, because I'm not on X. I'm a family man. At the SOTG. Find me on Facebook as a student of the game. Check out my writings with the Fans First Sports Network, not only for the Jacksonville Jaguars, but also for the playoff bound at least play-in bound NBA's Orlando Magic. And then, of course, my work covering currently spring football for the UCF Knights on the Black and Gold Banneret, as well as the Night Shift podcast and the Night Shift YouTube channel. Like and subscribe those if you happen to be following the Knights. Do that action right there. Who knows? Maybe there'll be a crossover with RJ Harvey soon. One can only hope, right? Talk on that late enough. Somebody mocked RJ Harvey, and I don't mean made fun of him, right, Travis? Anyways, of course, that'll do it for our regrade. Thanks for jumping in. An honor, joy, and privilege to do it for you. For Travis D. Holmes, I am Kyle Nash, student of the game. Until next time, everyone, class dismissed.